When I first met my son's fiancée, she wasted no time in delivering her cutting remarks. Your father only finished middle school. Can you even find a job with such minimal qualifications? She jeered, her laughter echoing through the room. Her father joined in, adding insult to injury with his own jibes. As if that wasn't enough, they made it clear I was not included in their meal plans, serving food only for themselves. The fiancée's mother, with a smirk plastered on her face, remarked, I only cook for my family. I've never encountered such a ridiculous parent during a family introduction. I decided I wouldn't tolerate their disrespect any longer. Feel free to say what you like, I retorted before swiftly exiting the restaurant. My name is Stephen Walker, 60 years old and father to Michael, a 25-year-old whose relationship with me is strained, to say the least. He hasn't set foot in my house in ages. I've often found myself grappling with regret over the way I raised him, especially considering it's what ultimately led to losing my beloved wife when Michael was still in elementary school. My wife had been fragile since childhood, and her passing at the tender age of 45 left a profound void in our lives. At her funeral, I paid no mind to the judgmental gazes of relatives. Grief enveloped me like a child in a daze. Michael, composed beyond his years, gently urged me, Dad, it's heartbreaking, but we need to bid Mom farewell. Yet my sorrow seemed fleeting, confined to those somber moments. At that time, I was overseeing a real estate business inherited from my father. The day following my wife's funeral, I awoke to a flurry of client calls. Duty beckoned, loyal clients awaited, and Michael needed my sole care. Those calls jolted me back to reality, propelling me to my office. Simultaneously, I found myself immersed in school functions and PTA gatherings, shouldering the responsibilities once shared with my wife. It was an unsteady juggle. I alone struggled to balance work and school commitments. I made a swift decision to temporarily shutter my business, passing my clientele to another real estate agency to devote time to Michael. Yet, upon arriving at his school, I was met with a cold reception. Michael's glare pierced through me as he uttered, Dad, I told you not to come. His words stung deeper when he pleaded, Don't let anyone know you're my dad, leaving me feeling like a stranger in my own son's life. Even now, as I sport a Walker name tag during PTA activities, the reason behind Michael's sudden aloofness remains a puzzle. During one such event, my mother's innocent inquiry unraveled the truth. Isn't that your father? She questioned, oblivious to the tension. What's he doing here on a weekday? Has he nothing else to occupy his time since your mother passed? Michael, silent and crestfallen, bore the brunt of his classmates' ridicule. Desperate to shield him from further humiliation, I intervened, offering a feeble excuse about taking a break from work akin to their summer or winter recess. Yet Michael's vulnerability only served as fodder for his peers' mockery, leaving me grappling with a sense of helplessness. Your dad's only job was pretending to take a break. Your family's poor. I'll share my lunch bread with you. Michael's classmates' taunts only fueled his growing resentment. Damn you, Dad, your words just made me look even worse, he seethed. Helpless against the onslaught of mockery, I could only avert my gaze, my heart heavy with the weight of his pain. Countless tears were shed in solitude as I grappled with my own sense of inadequacy. As Michael entered middle school, he began drifting towards troubled company. Nights were spent at friends' homes or lingering in gas station parking lots until the early hours. In an era where cell phones were a luxury, his absence became increasingly alarming. With each passing day, he returned home less frequently, leaving me in the dark about his whereabouts and activities. All I could do was offer apologies when the school's calls came, reporting complaints from nearby gas stations. Whenever I visited Michael's school, I endured a barrage of insults from him and his unruly peers, who hurled derogatory names and empty cans my way. Michael's demeanor had turned increasingly volatile since entering middle school, leaving me terrified to even approach him, unsure of how he might react. Reflecting on my parenting during his elementary years, I wished I had handled things differently. Yet I was at a loss. What was the appropriate approach to address a child's unruly behavior? Communication with a teenager seemed like an insurmountable challenge, leaving me utterly bewildered. Michael's truancy and classroom disruptions escalated, with his academic performance plummeting to new lows. During the parent-teacher conference, the prospect of a private high school emerged as a beacon of hope. Relief washed over me knowing there was an alternative where Michael could thrive. Perhaps, I reasoned, a change in environment and peer group would temper his behavior. True to my hopes, Michael's transition to high school marked a turning point. He applied himself diligently, achieving modestly above average grades and even securing admission to college. Yet despite his academic strides, his animosity towards me remained steadfast. Even as he progressed through high school and into college, Michael remained elusive, preferring the company of friends to returning home. Upon entering college, he embraced independent living in a dorm, financing his education through part-time work. His self-sufficiency was admirable, yet his demeanor towards me remained frosty. Even as he ventured into the workforce, the threshold of our home remained untouched by his presence. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, after years of silence, Michael reached out. "I found someone I want to marry," he declared abruptly over the phone, followed by the directive. "We're meeting at a fancy restaurant next Sunday at 2 p.m. Be there." His plans were laid out without the courtesy of inquiring about my availability. Caught off guard, I protested, "This is all too sudden," only to be met with indifference. "If you can't make it, don't bother," he retorted before abruptly ending the call, leaving me bewildered by his callous demeanor. Despite my conflicting emotions, I couldn't deny the bond I shared with my precious son, so for his sake, I complied with his summons and arrived promptly at the upscale restaurant as instructed. Upon my arrival, her parents greeted me with an air of hostility, demanding, "Who are you?" In a manner that caught me off guard. Irritated by their rudeness, I retorted, "You call me out of the blue and then ask who? Give me a break," yet my frustration fell on deaf ears as they denied any involvement in summoning me, mirroring my son's cold demeanor. Meanwhile, Michael stood nearby, sporting a smug grin that set off warning bells in my mind. Though uncertain of his intentions, I cautiously proceeded into the restaurant, the air thick with unspoken tension. As I stood there, feeling like an unwelcome intruder, Michael redirected the conversation towards me, painting a less than flattering picture of my life. "This guy," he began, gesturing towards me, "dropped out of high school and has been idle since mom passed away." I attempted to interject, urging him to reconsider the appropriateness of the discussion, but he remained steadfast in his narrative. To my dismay, Sarah joined in with mocking laughter, questioning the employability of someone with only a middle school education. Adding insult to injury, Sarah's father chimed in, applauding Michael's achievements in contrast to my perceived shortcomings. It was a humiliating moment, with Michael basking in the praise while I stood there, painfully aware of the disparagement directed towards me. Exhausted and disheartened, I was on the verge of walking out, ready to utter the words, "Say what you want, I'm out of here." But before I could speak, a waiter approached from behind me with the food, apologizing for the delay. It was a stark reminder that the meal had yet to arrive, a fact that had slipped my mind in the heat of the moment. Attempting to regain my composure, I resigned myself to eating what was in front of me and departing. However, my efforts were thwarted when the waiter brought out dishes only for Michael, Sarah, and her parents, apologizing for a reservation oversight. Sarah's mother, with a saccharine smile, dismissed my presence, declaring, "He's not part of our family, so please disregard him." The waiter, visibly uncomfortable, retreated just as my frustration reached its peak. Before I could react, Sarah's father intervened, his tone laced with disdain. "We have no interest in associating with a deadbeat high school dropout," he asserted, casting me out with a sharp dismissal. It was a bitter blow, hearing such words of rejection from those gathered around the table. That was the last straw. "Is education and job history all that matter to you?" I exclaimed, rising from my seat. "Seems like you folks are a bit out of touch with reality." With those words, I made my intent to leave abundantly clear. In response, Sarah's father delivered a cutting retort, emphasizing the importance of education and job history, particularly in his line of work at Bank of America. His condescending remarks stung, but I managed a parting comment as I exited the scene. "Impressive working at Bank of America," I murmured under my breath, though it hurt amidst the tension in the air. The following day, I made my way to Bank of America, where Sarah's father held his position. Despite being labeled a deadbeat by my son, his peers, and even my son's prospective in-laws, I must clarify that the title doesn't quite fit. Following my wife's passing, I opted for a temporary closure of the real estate business I managed. However, it's essential to note that this closure was not permanent. In the wake of my wife's demise, I pivoted my business towards online management, prioritizing my son's school commitments and PTA engagements. While operating a physical storefront, my clientele primarily consisted of local residents. However, transitioning to online management opened doors to a broader spectrum of clients, including those residing in rural areas miles away from the nearest train station, and even American expatriates. The internet served as a gateway to a wider market, allowing me to expand my property portfolio and cater to an extensive clientele. Running a real estate business online not only made my operations more efficient but also transformed distant aspirations into tangible realities. In addition to my real estate ventures, I also dabbled in stocks and investments as a personal hobby. Currently, I have $50 million deposited in Bank of America, where Sarah's father holds his position. Upon my arrival at the bank, I wasted no time in requesting a meeting with the branch manager to address the events of the previous day. I was informed by one of your employees that this bank operates on trusts founded upon educational background and work history. I explained, my disappointment evident. As a result of that statement, I've lost all faith in this institution. Could you please assist me with closing my account? The branch manager, visibly distraught, offered profuse apologies and guided me through the account closure process. On a separate note, there's an issue I nearly overlooked: an individual who has neglected to pay rent for the apartment I own for the past 2 years. I have been turning a blind eye to the issue, assuming leniency because he's my son, but enough was enough. I mailed him a notice demanding 2 years' worth of rent. 3 days later, I found myself face to face with Sarah's father and my son, both furious. "Why did you go behind my back and report me to the branch manager, Dad?" Michael accused, his tone seething with betrayal. Sarah's father chimed in, equally incensed, "And what's with that notice? If you're the manager, you should be covering for me." Exasperated, I replied, "I lost trust in the bank after discovering their practice of judging clients based on education and work history. Are you both panicking because of one person's comment? Do you have something to hide?" I turned to Michael, adding sternly, "Just because we're family doesn't mean you can shirk your responsibilities. Pay your own rent." Sarah's father interjected, "Your actions have caused a stir. I've received numerous complaints from other clients, and my boss reprimanded me because of your antics. It's outrageous." I haven't caused any trouble. I simply shared the situation in passing with my relatives and clients, I clarified with a gentle smile. My son retorted sharply, "Clients? What clients, Dad? You're just a deadbeat, aren't you?" I met his accusation with a calm rebuttal. "Do you think a deadbeat could afford to construct a substantial house in such a prime location and maintain this lifestyle? I've even undertaken recent renovations." My son's expression shifted to one of confusion as he exclaimed, "Ha! What do you mean? Did you go into debt or something? I'm really fed up with you." I took a hiatus from my real estate job for a period and transitioned to managing an online business, which I'm still involved in. How many times do I need to reiterate? I'm not a slacker, I stated firmly, watching as my son's complexion drained of color. "What? I had no idea. I thought you were only working part-time," he stammered in disbelief. Sarah's father erupted in anger. "You're quite the piece of work, hiding your occupation even from your own son." Annoyed by the accusation, I retorted, "Say whatever you want," as I shut the front door behind me, cutting off further discussion. Outside, their voices echoed in heated accusations, punctuated by threats of legal action and bitter resentment. "You've tarnished my reputation. I'll take you to court. I can't believe I've been deceived by my own father all this time. I won't stand for it." Their argument escalated into a cacophony of shouts, but after about 10 minutes of fervent protest, their voices gradually dwindled into silence. It seemed they had exhausted their anger. Realizing the futility of their outbursts, I breathed a sigh of relief, assuming they would refrain from returning. However, just as the tranquility settled in, my son's enraged voice shattered the calm. "You deceitful liar! What are you still doing here?" I peered out the window to witness Sarah's father and my son defacing my front door with spray paint. "This can't be happening. What are they plotting?" Just as I prepared to confront them, the wail of police sirens pierced the air, drawing closer by the second. Could it be that a concerned neighbor had alerted the authorities? My suspicions were confirmed when I stepped outside to find them both being apprehended by the police, responding to a complaint from the neighborhood. "There he is, that deceitful liar. I've lost all credibility at work because of him." Their accusations reverberated through the air as the police calmly escorted them into the patrol car, reassuringly stating, all right, we'll handle it from here." Suddenly noticing my presence, one of the officers approached me with an oddly cheerful demeanor. "Sir, would you mind accompanying us to provide your statement?" "Why me? But I suppose I'm the one wronged here. I'll spill the beans on all their deceitful antics," I replied, agreeing to go with them. Upon arrival at the police station, I presented the officers with footage from a security camera installed at my front door, capturing the entire commotion. "This is excellent evidence," exclaimed one of the officers, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. With the video in hand, my interrogation was swiftly concluded. Consequently, my son and Sarah's father received a stern warning from the police and were required to sign a restraining order, mandating that they maintain their distance from me. As it turned out, the entire neighborhood bore witness to their outrageous behavior. Word spread like wildfire, reaching even my son's workplace. A coworker who resided nearby couldn't contain the gossip, regaling the office with tales of Michael's arrest for vandalizing his own father's property. I was so taken aback that I captured the entire ordeal on video. The news of Michael's antics quickly spread throughout his workplace and among clients, resulting in his demotion by his employer. Determined to address the matter, I returned to Bank of America, where Sarah's father was employed. Upon presenting the manager with the security camera footage from my phone, his complexion drained of color. Subsequently, I learned that Sarah's father had been terminated from his position, and naturally, Sarah called off her engagement with Michael. Both Michael and Sarah's family relocated to a rural area, seeking refuge from the fallout of their actions. Rumor had it that Sarah's parents even took up part-time employment at a remote gas station operated by my brother. They were no good at it, couldn't grasp the basics of stocking shelves no matter how many times I showed them. Had to give them the boot right away. And word has it, nearby gas stations and farms did the same. According to my brother, it seems Sarah's parents can't hold down a steady job. They're bouncing around from one gig to another at gas stations and farms as a duo. Additionally, Sarah was known for showering her boyfriends, including my son, with lavish gifts like watches, and she ended up in debt because of it. The meager earnings her parents make from their part-time gigs reportedly go straight into clearing their daughter's debts, leaving it a mystery how they managed to make ends meet. It's been 5 years since then, and my son is now 30. It seems like he's made positive changes after experiencing kindness from the people in the small town he moved to. He approached me on a couple of occasions, offering sincere apologies. I realized I had been naive and immature, hastily labeling him as good for nothing without making an effort to understand his job. The weight of regret for my actions is something I can't apologize enough for. Observing the shift in my son's demeanor, I made the decision to allow him to move in with me. Now, he's employed at a company near my residence, and gradually, he's begun assisting me with my work as well. However, it's important to note that he's still inexperienced and I'm cautious about placing complete trust in him. While I remain hesitant to delegate all my tasks to him, I intend to closely monitor his behavior and attitude towards work before making any further decisions. If he demonstrates a genuine transformation in his life, I might entertain the idea of entrusting him with my business. However, expressing this possibility directly to him could lead to impulsivity. He might eagerly respond with, "Seriously, I'll resign tomorrow," and act without careful consideration. For now, I'm living with my son, holding on to the hope that someday I'll feel secure enough to place my complete trust in him.